Welcome to Made for Another World podcast with Aaron Alvarado and me, Jacob Simmons. Each week, we have distinct and stately conversations regarding Christian books, stories, songs, and sermons with the hopes that we will walk away a little homesick for the world we were made for. This is episode 12, Messiah by Beautiful Eulogy. Beautiful Eulogy is a Portland, Oregon-based group made up of artists Braille, Odd Thomas, and Cortland Urbano. Per the Humble Beast website, the group introduces a distinct and directive sound that's driven by a desire to worship and glorify the God of the Bible, based in the context of its members' hip-hop roots and shaped by influences like electronic music, folk songs, and old hymns.
In 2017, when the album Worthy came out, Owen Strahan wrote, "A few lines of Messiah cover a theology of pleasure, Edenic sadness, divine gifts, Christic centrality, idolatry, and a theology of emotion. And our hope is to pull out some of that same detail to ground what was written in Scripture, and as always, to simply sit back and enjoy."
And that we shall.
Yeah, we will. All right, first clip.
So it starts out strong,
Yeah.
obviously, to say, I can't even rely on my desires, and yet I treat them like a Messiah.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, obviously that's what sin is. That's what we do with our sin, is we think, oh, this will be it. This will be my satisfaction, my fulfillment. And yet, you can't even rely on them. You can't rely on them to be anything more than guilt-ridden and shame-producing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I love it. Starts out like, let's go with the hardest-hitting truth for the first line.
Yeah. And for me, I know I find myself, and I think I speak for a lot of people, we do rely on these things, and when we know, especially, we should be relying on the true Messiah, us and our just stupid sinfulness, we're going to find ourselves relying on things that we shouldn't, and making them a Messiah, making them an idol, making them something that they definitely aren't and shouldn't be and were never intended to be. It's a good way. It's a good line. It's not very tricky as far as lyrics go. I mean, It's just straight to the point. But like you said, it's a good start.
Yeah. When did you discover them?
Oh, man, I don't really even know. I know. I couldn't even tell you exactly when. I think I stumbled across them at some point, just randomly hearing a couple of songs. Didn't really know who they were or stick with them. It's been probably 10 years maybe since I first heard them. Maybe not even that long ago, maybe less than that. And then within the last, 5 years or so, I'm like, I love these guys.
Yeah. You introduced them to me.
Did I?
Yeah.
Well, you're welcome.
Not in person. Well, you and I were in person.
Yeah.
Not they were. But I remember being like, this is amazing. Because I, being saved a little before my 19th birthday, grew up with listening to hip-hop and loving it. And then when I became a believer, I was like, ooh, there's a dramatic drop-off in production.
Yeah.
And, I had heard some, and it was just like, well, the lyrics I think are rich here in some of these songs, but there wasn't that, I guess, production quality to it. And then when you introduced me to them, I was like, whoa, man, this is awesome. These are, it has both. It has that theological punch that we just read or just heard about, and then, but also it sounds good.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was one of the favorite things about them that drew me to them to begin with was it's like it sounded good And at first, like, that's all you kind of notice. Like, oh, yeah, oh, this actually sounds pretty decent. And then you listen, and it's like, everything they're saying is good and solid. Like, and sometimes there's some artists where it's like the majority of it's pretty good, but then there's a few things here and there you're like, nah. And not that these guys are perfect by any means, like we've talked about in previous episodes, but about anybody that produces any sort of art. But the songs are solid, man. So I recommend these guys 10 out of 10 to anybody.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Well, just a little bit of, before we get going to the next clip, that's what the song is about, right? That we treat these things like the Messiah when we have our Messiah. And so just wanted to point out from Psalm 115, it says, their idols are silver and gold, the work of human hands. They have mouths but do not speak, eyes but do not see. They have ears but do not hear, noses but do not smell. They have hands but do not feel, feet but do not walk, and they do not make a sound in their throat. Those who make them become like them, so do all who trust in them. And we bring that up to point to just what idolatry is and what trusting in those desires actually leads to. It's like, well, if you trust in a desire, or if you trust in if you trust in sin ultimately to fulfill you, well, sin and idols, they're based on things that can't speak, can't breathe, and yet we have a living Messiah, a living God to trust in. And so wanted to just point that out at the get-go, at the front, at the beginning.
The get-go, the front of the beginning.
The Genesis, the forefront.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
3 front.
It's even before the forefront.
Yeah. All right. Next clip.
Yeah.
Or next part, section, whatever.
Whatever it is that gives that feeling that we can't live without. The joys we try to get that only God can give, we highly doubt. What allures and arouses the heart we can't figure out, but it's the quickest way to account for what we prize and are most proud about. These gods make promises, but always lie to us. The kind of lies that says they'll keep us safe and satisfy us.
All right. I know, like we talked about this with Shane and Shane, it's a hard way to listen to a song to stop and break down.
As soon as the hit starts popping, you just chop it off.
Yeah, but we just want to point out a couple of things. So, if you aren't able to carry or to follow along, like we'll read some of the lyrics back. But so he says, whatever it is that gives the feeling that we can't live without. So whatever it is that we say, man, if I lost that, my life would be over. Whether it's even something good, sometimes especially something good, family, our own children, our spouse. All of these things can become our idols, because if we think, if they are happy with me, then my life is fulfilled. If they are, if my kids turn out to be a certain way, that's what that's what will make me live, essentially. And so he's saying, whatever that is that we're seeking out and we're trying to find that's not God is ultimately going to fail us.
Yeah, and we're going to do that a bunch, right?
Yeah.
I mean, again, not to make excuses for what we do that's wrong, but I mean, and we talk about time and time again, just on this podcast, let alone in Christian life with other Christians, that we don't always place God where he should be in our hearts, in our lives, in our minds. And so we look to find joy in things. And now, is it bad to find joy in things that aren't just directly just God? No, of course not. But that leads us, so we've talked about before too, that leads us to joy in God, because we know that it brings us joy because God allowed it to give us joy. But us in our fickle minds, me and my fickle mind, like, oh, this one thing that brings me joy, yeah, boom, idol. Like all of a sudden, that's my little Messiah all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And that's going to be part of the sanctification process until the very end, right?
Right.
But to rap about it and say we shouldn't do it is a good thing to do.
Isn't that so frustrating though? Like we know better.
Yeah.
But yet we still fall into that. It's so frustrating. But it also brings up another point from, since idolatry at its root, at its core, is just a lie, right? Well, so Isaiah 44 verse 9 says, all who fashion idols, all who make them are nothing, and the things they delight in do not profit. Their witnesses neither see nor know, that they may be put to shame. Who fashions a god or casts an idol that is profitable for nothing? So he's essentially what would it profit a man if he gained the world and lost his soul? Like, if you gain everything in this world, you've still lost everything.
Yeah.
It's all a mirage. It's all a lie. It's all a I don't know if just the object of those is the promise, or if it's our hearts that are like, I think there's a promise there.
Right.
But either way, how that works out, it's always, here's this wonderful promise, and if you go and get it, you will be fulfilled forever.
Yeah.
And then you get it, and it's like,
nope,
no, it's not at all.
Yeah. Good. All
Next
right.
Next clip.
Next clip.
We blame the lies outside of us, but it's the lie that lies inside that captures the depths of desires and false messiahs. We see pleasure in anything, we overestimate everything, endlessly trusting an empty entity, secretly searching for anything in moments of blessing while exiting edicts of Eden over our ecstasy. When a good God gives good gifts, we generally tend to twist the list and take the list of good gifts that God tends to give and make general gods out of gifts. I suppose what exposes the worship in most of us is a close look at most of our thoughts, fears, and emotions.
I'll let you take that one.
Man, so, okay. Let me find some of these lyrics that we're going to read. I'm not going to sit here and try to rap the whole verse.
Spit.
We seek pleasure in anything. We overestimate everything, endlessly trusting in empty entities. And again, just going on with what we've been saying and what they've been saying or rapping or singing or whatever this is. We overestimate everything. Like, so part of that is when we do, if there is an idol, there is something that brings us joy, saying that alone is what gives us joy is overestimating that thing, right? Because that's not what's providing the joy. It's God himself through that, like we've talked about. And man, I mean, so the first clip that we went through and then this clip, I mean, obviously these all kind of fall into the same thing, and obviously the whole song is going to be the same point, I hope. We'll see if we listen to it. It's the first time I've ever heard it. But they don't, it's the one thing that I like about Beautiful Eulogy is that it's not a lot of fluff. They're just like, this is almost like a wrapped sermon, it's like just in your face. Hey, here's the deal. You overestimate everything. You put your trust in anything. What are we doing? So I really enjoy that and appreciate that from them.
Yeah. And it's a beautiful line because he goes forward and then backward on it. But he says, when a good God gives gifts, we generally tend to twist the list and take the list of good gifts that God tends to give and make general gods out of those gifts. And it's, I think all of us can say, yep, I've done that. That's exactly what idolatry is. And but to put it in that way, it's just it's artful.
Yeah.
Artistic?
Yeah. Both. Artfully artistic.
Yeah. But so why he brings that up is to say, like, if you look at those things, it exposes what you tend to trust in, right? It exposes where your heart kind of has these trenches that it goes, oh, let's believe this, let's believe, and it goes back to these things. So if you look at them, it's the weed, right? You have to get down to the root of the idolatry and see, like, oh, I want that thing because I have a control issue, or I want this thing because I, have an anger in me for some reason or another. And so it's just saying, like, that's what if you look at those things closely, it exposes more than what it is on the outset.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that. And that's a good, I feel like I say this all the time. It's a good reminder. Like, that's a good way to kind of gauge where my heart is, where am I at? What am I worshiping? How am I worshiping? Why am I worshiping it? And then how do I take those things? Because he says the last line, is, I suppose what exposes the worship in most of us is a close look at most of our thoughts, fears, and emotions, like you just said. So if those things are controlling my worship, or those expose what I'm worshiping, why? Why am I worshiping it? And not just why, but contrast that with what I should be worshiping and how I should be worshiping. How would that affect those fears and emotions and all of those things, that instead of those things leading to my worship, my true worship should affect those things, lead into those things. You know what I mean? So,
well, Tim Keller's written, I think it's a whole book on idolatry. I think it's Counterfeit Gods. But essentially he just walks through the different passages of Scripture that point to what idolatry is, what it tends to leave people with, right? And so this is just a quote from him. Why do we lie or fail to love or break our promises or live selfishly? Of course, the general answer is because we are weak and sinful. But the specific answer is that there is something besides Jesus Christ that we feel we must have to be happy, something that is more important to our heart than God, something that is enslaving our heart through inordinate desires. The key to change is therefore to identify the idols of the heart. And so, it's true in so many different ways, but almost if there's a denial of basic issues, then those won't be worked on, right? But if you can say genuinely and truthfully, I sin in these ways, I have an idol, in this way, then you can start to work on it, right? But if you say, well, I don't really have that idol, there's nothing to work on then.
Yeah.
But again, all of that is only possible and only even realistic at all through the lens of the gospel, right? So you can only truly take an honest, self-evaluative look at yourself if you know your sins have been paid for. If not, then yes, stay in denial. It's fine, I guess. But if you look at yourself and say, I do want to change, I can change because I'm deeply loved by God, even though I have not changed. And so now I have motivation to change, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, for sure. Good stuff, man.
Next clip.
Next clip.
No matter what I do, I can't ever make it last. I just repeat my past. I'm so broken. So much I thought I knew. All the things that I pursued, I'm worse off than before.
Well, that's just what we've been saying. Well, okay. Quick note. That's not Beautiful Eulogy. That's
true.
Citizens.
Yeah.
Forgot to mention that the song was featuring Citizens.
The band, not just random citizens.
Yes, thank you. But apologies to Citizens if you guys are listening. Of the world, not the band.
All the citizens. Yeah.
But so, it just sounds beautiful, though, number one. Number two, says no matter what I do, I keep repeating my past. I keep doing this over and over and over again. And I can't make it last. And I think that is a confession that all of us can make at any given moment of time. It's like, man, I'm still here. I'm still struggling with sin. Maybe I've grown and gained some ground, I guess, in some areas. But in if you look at my life, for the most part, I'm still a sinner struggling to believe. And that's I feel his frustration.
Yeah.
Because I feel it in my bones. I feel like, that's where I'm at. But I love, though, that the song, even the title of it, is Messiah. Right. There is one who I can trust in, who there is certainty and a ton of fortitude in believing in, but we haven't gotten to that part yet.
Yeah. And how he says at the end of that, this feeling of I'm worse off than before, and I don't know if it was on the podcast or if we were just talking, but I think it was you were saying something like we're on this trajectory, and then that may have not made the podcast, but
I think we cut it
because it's difficult to talk about it because it's hard to comprehend and explain, but we're this upward sanctifying trajectory that we're on. But yet it's not just a straight line. There's these ups and downs, and there could be times where it feels like you hit those downs and it's like, I'm worse off than I was before. What is even happening? But yet you see the big picture. You maybe today I'm worse off than I was 3 days ago, but by God's grace, me being worse off than 3 days ago is still better than I was, 3 years ago or whatever. So, like you said, you feel this, you feel the emotion that he's getting to, that he's singing about, that we all feel. But like you said, there's a Messiah, and that's what we rest in. So, good. How about we check out the next clip?
Ooh,
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea.
I can't always rely on my desires, but I treat them like a messiah. I can't always rely on my desires, but I treat them like a messiah.
The saddest fact is that I search for satisfaction, as if I lack it, when in fact I lack nothing.
That could be the whole song right there.
There you go,
man.
right there.
Jeez.
The saddest fact. I search for satisfaction as if I lack it. Like that makes sense, right? Like we get that. We get that. But in fact, I lack nothing. Which we get. I'm going to hit the same point we hit on a lot of these episodes. I get it, but I don't get it.
Yep.
You know, like there's the things that we think we're lacking. How do you, like if you think that there's a deficit, but there's not, like how do you, it's difficult, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm only lacking the things that I think are lacking, when God's like, no, you're not lacking. You have all that you need. You have, for one, you have Christ, you have me. Like, what more could you want?
Right.
And he gives us more than that even too, you know? I mean,
Right.
so that, yeah, I mean, that's a summary of Christianity, right? Or just life in general. Not a summary, but that's a thread that is woven through the Christian life is, man, there's things that I'm missing, you know, whether it's struggling with work or finances or relationship, or I'm this old and not married, or how come I've been working this hard and don't have this house, or even just, I'm trying to seek out, friends and a church, and I can't seem to find a good church. I mean, there's all kinds of things. Even in those moments, that's a good thing to do, to search for a good church, and if you want a spouse, to search for a spouse,
Sure.
to pursue a spouse.
Yeah.
All those things are good, but just because we don't have those doesn't mean that we're quote unquote lacking, and that's going to be a struggle to the very last day, man.
Yeah. A contentment that everything is okay because we're safe in God's hands. That's always, I think we talked about it in the last podcast. It's theologically always true,
Yeah.
and it's an impossibility, a theological impossibility for that not to be true. And yet that's constantly what we find ourselves doing. And the thing that, so going back to the last episode again, I think I just said that whole sentence, but when we talked about all that Christ suffered, right? The horrible brutality of God's wrath raining down, and talked about like that's exactly what we deserve. If we just look at it from that standpoint, that's what we deserve. And so if my finances, house, spouse, any other thing that rhymes with that, like if all those things are not the way I want them to be, I deserve much less. Yeah. If I lose everything and I can't see, I can't smell, I can't speak, I'm like one of the idols, I don't have anything, I still deserve far worse.
Yeah.
But my thick head just doesn't get that, man. It does and it doesn't, and it's so frustrating.
Yeah.
Well, but it brought up a quote from Derek Thomas. This world and all its fullness will not satisfy the utmost longings of the soul. But if we have Christ and nothing else, we have everything. Amen.
Amen. Next clip?
Yeah, would you like to go to the next clip?
I would love to, man. Thanks for asking.
Here we go.
Let's go there.
That's the reason for my lackluster prayer life and my lust for distractions. It's so easy to see in hindsight. I must confess it's the mess I acknowledge when I'm stalling on my responsibilities and don't apologize but make excuses. Like my physical exhaustion is a license for narcissism and speaking recklessly without caution. I often wonder why I'm so awkward in conversations, wishing I could switch places, envious of others. But my envy is a reflex of my ignorance, cause I don't know the details of their daily existence. I just assume the weight I carry is the heaviest, but I never been a heavyweight. My legs get heavy when I wait.
Go ahead.
I was waiting on you. Again, coming back to what the song is about, right? So, true Messiah versus false messiahs, and so he's just kind of saying how that has played out in his life. Like, this is just a confession. Well, he even says, "I must confess the mess that I'm in." It's all like my lackluster prayer life, when I don't apologize, but I make excuses, my physical exhaustion, all of it points to, well, I must not be content in God. I must not be content in my Messiah, because look at all these things I'm trying to do and get done, and I'm physically exhausted because I felt like I needed to do this thing and stay up too late, or I worked too hard, or I ate too much and then I was up through the night, or whatever the physical exhaustion may be. But all of it points to, where's my contentment gone in Christ? Where has it?
Yeah.
What have I done with it?
That's a good question. Where has it gone? You already read it, but when he says that's the reason for my lackluster prayer life and my lust for distraction, I mean, it's knowing the true Messiah and then treating him as the Messiah without the little messiahs. Like, it's kind of like eating right. You know what I mean? Like when you eat right, like, you feel good, you feel better. Things are working better. Your body's working better. Your mind is working better. And you're like, oh, this is right and this is good, but yet it's hard to continue to eat right. At least for me, like, it's not something that I am really good at doing consistently. Yeah. But when I don't eat right, whether intentionally or unintentionally, things get lackluster. The things that I should be doing, I don't, because I'm just, I'm kind of dragging because I'm, ate a chili cheese dog for lunch instead of, something better. Like, those things will drag me down physically because I am not putting into my body what I should be. I'm putting the wrong nutrients, you know what I mean? And this is not I'm not a health freak. Like, I don't know what I'm talking about right now, but you know what I mean? Like, there are things that we know that are better for us than other things. And so the same thing spiritually, like, we know what is not just better, but what is right. And that is Christ as the Messiah, and should be our one and only idol, should be Christ. Can I say that? He should be our idol? Okay.
I'm good with it.
That we worship him,
right.
And not other things. Because when we do, then our spiritual life becomes lackluster and draggy because I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And I'm putting the wrong things into my body that I shouldn't be doing, as opposed to the way that I should be spiritually, whether it's praying or reading the Bible. If I'm focused on other things, other idols in my life, other messiahs, I'm going to get sluggish, man. So
right.
there's kind of like that comparison there of,
yeah.
Hey, that do what's good for you, do what you know is right. And you'll feel the difference. Do what you know isn't right, and you'll feel the difference.
Well, it goes back to what we just read from Psalm 115. It says, "Those who make them become like them, and so do all who worship them." And so that's exactly what you're talking about. If you are worshiping that idol, you'll start to look like it, and if it is dead, which it is,
yeah,
you'll start to take on some of that death.
Mm-hmm.
So that's exactly what he said.
Yeah,
well done.
Yeah, well, thank
you. Just like psalmed us.
No. Next quick clip.
Quick clip.
Hope deferred, so I prefer the immediate and exchange the true God for what seems more expedient. It's meaningless.
So good. Hope deferred, so I prefer the immediate.
Yep.
We should have read that line and trying to explain everything we've been talking about. Hope deferred, like, hope it's coming. It's just not here yet.
Mm-hmm.
And since that's true, well, I need something.
Yeah.
I need some sort of idol to worship. And that's it. It sounds so silly, like saying it out loud to you right now. Yet when I say it to myself, it sounds more appealing. Like it has to.
Right.
Like otherwise I wouldn't ever worship an idol. But yet here I am, and this is exactly what I do. But so that made me think of Romans 1:21. says, "For although they knew God, they did not honor him as God or give thanks to him, but they became futile in their thinking, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Claiming to be wise, they became fools and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images resembling mortal man and birds and animals and creeping things." Because the next line says, "and exchange," so I prefer the immediate, "and exchange the true God for what seems more expedient." It's meaningless. And I love that he says that, because that's brutally honest. That is, like you said, if it's a sermon, that's the point of conviction right there, is you're exchanging the true God for these things.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, it's not something trivial to sin. It's not something trivial to worship an idol. It's meaningless. It is, like, for all intents and purposes, stupid.
Yeah.
And yet, that's where we are, man. It's we say it every single week, I think, or every single day, but just where we are.
Yeah. Yeah. Why are we like this? Yeah. Like we ask ourselves. And I mean, if that doesn't help show us just who we are on the inside, like we are just people who want things now, right? I mean, that's how we're wired. And there's a lot of life where that's good, like in work, I've got to meet deadlines, so I'm trying to push to get things done now, or if I'm, it affects negative ways, little road rage. Hey, I'm trying to get where I'm going. I need to get there right now. I can't add 4 seconds to my drive. Why'd you cut me off? Not mad. Like why are we so that way? And I know, I always talk about it, but there's cultural influence there for sure. But when it comes to the things of God, it's frustrating that I can't just say, I'll wait. Like I got to know right now. And without getting too geeked out or crazy about it, like the fact that God isn't bound by time, like not that he would anyways, but it wouldn't frustrate him. Like he can't be like, oh, I'm running late. Like to him, it's already happened, or hasn't already happened, or whatever, we're wanting. It's already been done to him. And so our perspective, I think that's part of what makes it a little bit difficult as humans, because our perspective is only what our perspective is. And so there's not really a different approach. But I know for me, it's like, okay, just remind yourself, as much as you feel like something needs to happen right now, it will happen when it's supposed to happen. It already happened when it's supposed to happen. Just wait for that, dude. Just chill. Just don't worry about the road rage. Don't worry about,
So, okay, question.
Yeah.
Can you pray for something that has already happened?
Well, technically, that's what we do every time.
Oh. Just dropping truth bombs, man.
But all right. Mean, so do we not pray because it's already happened? No. The answer is no.
Yeah, right.
Listener.
We do. Okay, if you know the result of something, it's like that was the will of God, right? And so that's praying for that seems different to me. But if I don't know the result of something,
and that's the stuff I'm talking about.
Yeah.
We don't know when the answer's coming, what the answer is going to be.
Right.
Yeah, we still pray for it. Absolutely.
All right. Next clip.
Let's do it.
Final clip. Final clip.
Oh man, final clip. All right.
I can always rely on my desires, but I'll treat them like a messiah. I can always rely on my desires, but I treat them like a messiah.
Help us not be haste when it comes to temporal blessings, and always see them for what they're actually meant to be. A mere extension of your loving kindness, extended to an undeserved humanity. Help us not see greater value in the gifts you give, and not become distracted from their intended desires. May we regard the world and all that is in it as nothing compared to the satisfaction of knowing our Messiah.
These guys are just so good, man. Yeah. Like I said, like this is like a prayer. Like I could just type this out or write it on a Post-it note, put it on my mirror, and just be like, dude, every morning, every night. Yeah, at the fridge. So, well, kind of running out of room, but
moving on to the mirror.
On the fridge. Help us to not be hasty when it comes to temporal blessings, and always see them for what they're actually meant to be, a mere extension of your love and kindness extended to an undeserved humanity. So a lot of this song is kind of like talking about how we struggle with not just God's timing, but we make these other messiahs because we're not fully content in that moment with the true Messiah. And, we want blessings, or we want to see that God is like, that's when we find ourselves, it's easy to say, okay, you are my God. You are, like, I don't have these other little gods. You are my God right now because you're doing something for me, because I'm seeing these blessings. We don't even deserve those. Like, without those, if there were none of these temporal blessings, God is still God, and he's still worthy to be our one Messiah without the other Messiahs. And we're so fickle, or I think there's some, I don't remember the phraseology he used earlier, but it was like, we're just silly. Like, we're so silly, and we expect more than we should. Make sure I say this right. Like, I'm not saying we expect too much of God, because we can't expect all that God is capable of, but we expect things that we shouldn't expect, right. And for them to become part of our life, or just whatever they are, we expect these things, and maybe it's not necessarily bad to expect God to do things or anticipate God to do things, but for it to be like a negative thing when it doesn't happen that way, that will push me into an idol somewhere else, because, oh, well, God didn't give me what I wanted. Let me go find what I want somewhere else, as opposed to, God didn't give me what I thought I wanted. That means I probably shouldn't have it. It would have been a blessing, but I didn't deserve it anyways, and there's a reason I don't have it. So just be content, Aaron. Shut up and be content.
Well, I guess I'm kind of plugging a different song on the album, but there's another one, Wait, which is the title, but it's essentially waiting on God. And he says toward the end, I think, of we'll worship while we wait.
Yeah.
And that's the key, is like waiting on God is not this, if you provide this for me, then I'll worship. It's no, he's worthy of it right now. And whether or not he brings whatever you think he should bring to you, or if he answers that prayer in the way that you think he should, or so on and so forth, yet not my will, but your will be done. Yeah. And, but it's tricky though, right? I think a lot of Christian books and pastors that are very popular say kind of the opposite of that, right? It's like, if you don't have those things, it's actually showing a lack of faith on your part, right? And it's, which is just heartbreaking to know that people believe that, and it's under the name of God that those things are being said. And but if you've ever heard that, or if you've got any friends or family that have heard that, it's very easy to point them to. So I have two passages. 1 Corinthians 2:2 says, "For I decided to know nothing among you except Jesus Christ and him crucified." So what is the most valuable thing? He says, I decided to know nothing among you. Like, I don't want anything else except Jesus Christ and him crucified. And then Psalm 73, "Whom have I in heaven but you? And there is nothing on earth that I desire besides you. My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever." And that is almost, if I could say it, the prayer that is the song, Messiah. Mm-hmm. Whom have I in heaven but you?
Yeah. I
try to live as though I have plenty of things, but truly at the end of the day, I don't have anything on earth or even in heaven that I desire except for you.
Yeah. Amen.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Eulogy.
We
didn't even plan that.
No.
That just worked out.
Crazy.
Well, anything else from that song?
No, I don't think so. Just go listen to it. Listen to the album. Listen to all their albums and buy them and go see them and everything.
Favorite Beautiful Eulogy song?
This is one. Beautiful Eulogy is one that's an actual name of one of their songs. Is Beautiful Eulogy. That's one of my favorites. There's a bunch. They're all. I don't know that there's one that I'm like, I don't like this one. It's not good. Yeah, Doxology is good. Sovereign is a good one.
Oh yeah.
They're all fantastic. All the albums are fantastic. Just really, really good.
All right.
Yeah. Can't stand these guys, as you can tell.
Yeah, seriously.
Can't stand them.
Well, with that then, we'll close out with this from the final line of the song just one more time. May we regard the world and all that is in it as nothing compared to the satisfaction of knowing our Messiah. Yeah. Join us next week as we open up some 1600s Gentle and Lowly. Until then, this has been Aaron Alvarado and me, Jacob Simmons, and we are made for another world.
Is it hot in here to you?
Always,
always. I don't know a lot of words. My headphones are sopping wet.
Yeah. So it's hot in here to you too?
Yeah.
Are you feeling... You've got all the air coming at you.
No, there ain't nothing over here.
It's coming at you.
No, I got nothing.
No.
I got nothing.
Is that heater on?